واتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون. قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون. قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم. قالوا طائركم معكم إن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. إني ذا لفي ضلال مبين. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين. إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون. ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون. وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون. وآية لهم الأرض الميتة وأحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون. وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون. سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون. وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون. والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم. لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون. وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون. وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين. وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا ونطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين. ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون. ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون. قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون. إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون. فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون. إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون. هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون. لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون. سلام قولا من رب رحيم. وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون. ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم. ولقد ضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون. هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون. اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون. اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون. ولو نشاء طمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون. ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون. ومن نعمره نكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون. وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين. أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون. واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون. لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون. فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون. أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين. وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم. قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم. الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون. أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم. إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون. السورة المباركة الفاتحة.
برائے خشنودی شہدائے کربلا صلوات. باردیگل بلندتر صلوات. آیا نہ ہوگا اس طرح حسن و شباب ریت پر. آیا نہ ہوگا اس طرح حسن و شباب ریت پر. گلشن فاطمہ کے تھے سارے گلاب ریت پر. گلشن فاطمہ کے تھے سارے گلاب ریت پر. جانے بطول کے سوا کوئی نہیں کھلا سکا. جانے بطول کے سوا کوئی نہیں کھلا سکا. قطرۂ آب کے بغیر اتنے گلاب ریت پر. قطرۂ آب کے بغیر اتنے گلاب ریت پر. جتنے سوال عشق نے آلے رسول سے کیے. جتنے سوال عشق نے آلے رسول سے کیے. ایک کے بعد ایک دیے سارے جواب ریت پر. ایک کے بعد ایک دیے سارے جواب ریت پر. پیاسا حسین کو کہوں پیاسا حسین کو کہوں اتنا تو بے ادب نہیں. پیاسا حسین کو کہوں اتنا تو بے ادب نہیں. لم سے لبے حسین کو ترسا ہے آب ریت پر. لم سے لبے حسین کو ترسا ہے آب ریت پر. عشق میں کیا بچا یہ عشق میں کیا لٹائے، عشق میں کیا بچائے، عشق میں کیا لٹائے، آل نبی نے لکھ دیا سارا نصاب ریت پر، آل نبی نے لکھ دیا سارا نصاب ریت پر، آل نبی کا کام تھا، آل نبی ہی کر دے، آل نبی کا کام تھا، آل نبی ہی کر کوئی نہ لکھ سکا ادیب ایسی کتاب ریت پر، کوئی نہ لکھ سکا ادیب ایسی کتاب ریت پر، گلشن فاطمہ کے تھے سارے گلاب ریت پر، صلوات محمد۔
اٹھائیس رجب کی شب مولا حسین قبر پیغمبر پر جاتے ہیں رخصت کے لیے، صلوات۔ چند بند۔ اے نانا کے روزے میرا گھر ہوتا ہے ویران، اب ہائے میری آخری رخصت کا ہے سامان، اے قبر حسین آج کی شب ہوتا ہے مہمان، کل روح میرے نانا کی ہوئیں گی پریشان، اے قبر میں دکھ پاؤں گا پردیس میں جا کر، تو شاک ہو تو نانا سے لپٹ جاؤں میں آ کر، شبیر نے سر شکر کے سجدے میں جھکایا، اور پہلو سے مرکز سے مصلی کو بچھایا، سوئے جو عبادت میں تو نانا نظر آیا، تانف انہیں قبر سے نکلا ہوا پایا، دیکھا تو گلے ملنے کو ارمان بڑے ہیں، پھیلائے ہوئے ہاتھ وہ قدمے کھڑے ہیں. شبیر نے سرنانا کی چھاتی سے لگایا, رو کر کہا جس دن سے اٹھا آپ کا سایہ, نانا کی قسم چین ہم نے نہ پایا, اب لے چلو ساتھ اپنے کے امت نے ستایا. جانے نہ دو سفر میں مجھے چورا وطن میں, ہم تم رہے ایک خبر میں اور ایک کفن میں. وہ بولے کہ کیا وعدہ وفا کر چکے شبیر, سر کو میری امت پہ فدا کر چکے شبیر. کیا لاش اکبر پہ بکا کر چکے شبیر, خنجر کے تلے شکر خدا کر چکے شبیر. کیوں سے لاشیں پہ تیرے گر چکی زینب, کیوں کوفے میں سر کھولے ہوئے پھر چکی زینب. صلوات.
اور محمد وآل محمد صلوات. چودہ علم ایک مشکی ذات, بے شیر کا ایک ننھا جھولا, دو بالیاں چھوٹی بی بی کی, ایک شمع جلا کر تم رکھنا, اور یاد میں ہو ایک دولہا کی کچھ مہندی کنگنا اور صحرا. گھر میں وضع کا ناز سجا, پاؤ گے بہت زہرا کی دعا, پاؤ گے بہت زہرا کی دعا. زہرا کی دعا پانا سجانا زخانہ, زہرا کی دعا پانا سجانا زخانہ. اہل عزائے شاہ خدا اس دہر میں جب تک ہو زندہ, تہذیب عزاداری ہے یہی دو کام ضروری تم کرنا, دو کام ضروری تم کرنا. مجلس میں چلے آنا سجانا زخانہ, زہرا کی دعا پانا سجانا زخانہ. انعمت علیہم کی آیت یا پھر رحمان کہو سورہ, شامل ہے عزا خانہ اس میں, نعمت کا جہاں بھی ذکر ہوا, نعمت کا جہاں بھی ذکر ہوا. نعمت کو نہ ٹھکرانا، سجانا زخانہ زہرا کی دعا پانا، سجانا زخانہ۔ بے دست ہوا سقا لیکن اس نے نہ ہم کو جھکنے دیا، پہچان ازا خانہ ہے غم، پیغام ہی عباس کا تھا، پیغام ہی عباس کا تھا۔ دنیا سے نہ گھبرانا، سجانا زخانہ زہرا کی دعا پانا، سجانا زخانہ۔ تعظیم کبھی نہ کم کرنا، تا حشر رہے حرمت باقی، یہ صرف عزا خانہ ہی نہیں، ارمان دل زہرا ہے یہی، ارمان دل زہرا ہے یہی۔ بچوں کو یہ سمجھانا، سجانا زخانہ زہرا کی دعا پانا، سجانا زخانہ۔ جس وقت چھدا تھا مشکیزہ، جب آئی خبر غازی نہ رہا، کچھ کوزے پیاسے بچوں کے ہاتھوں سے گرے اور ٹوٹ گئے، ہاتھوں سے گرے اور ٹوٹ گئے۔ کچھ کوزے بھی رکھوانا، سجانا زخانہ زہرا کی دعا پانا، سجانا زخانہ۔ راہب کی طرح مل جائے پسر، یا حر کی طرح بخشے جاؤ، پھر شکر ادا کرنے کے لیے تم بھی یہ سلیقہ اپناؤ، تم بھی یہ سلیقہ اپناؤ، ایسے ہو یہ شکرانہ، سجانا زخانہ زہرا کی دعا پانا، سجانا زخانہ۔ شبیر یہ زینب سے بولے، کچھ کام ابھی بھی باقی ہے، ظالم جو شہیدوں کے سر دے، وہ پہلے عزا خانے میں سجے، وہ پہلے عزا خانے میں سجے۔ جب شام بہن جانا، سجانا زخانہ زہرا کی دعا پانا، سجانا زخانہ۔ محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم۔
Sayyid Bilal, my respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Just a few announcements. Last year, if you recall, we had a very successful event during the month of Muharram, It was a gathering of all the Who's Hussein chapters around the country that gathered on one day called Hussein Service Day. We were fortunate to have many of you obviously donate very generously towards that program. I believe we raised close to $2,000. And that $2,000, along with the 45 volunteers who joined us the Saturday afternoon, were able to put together 500 food packets, which were then distributed at the local food pantries. So continuing that success this year, the Who's Hussein organization across the country has agreed once again to host or conduct the National Hussein Day, which will be next Saturday. So again, we ask for the donations to make this program a success again this year, along with the volunteers. So inshallah, we'll put out an announcement via the email system. Those who can donate, please donate. And then also we'll announce the timing and the coordination for the volunteers to come together and put the food packets together. The blood drive this year will be again on Ashura Day, as we've had traditionally conducted over the past many years. This year, that will be Tuesday, September 10th. Please see Brother Riaz Karmali, who will be coordinating the blood drive, and we'll have sign-ups posted as well. Anyone who needs an excuse letter for Ashura Day, please see members of the Secretariat. That would be Brother Ali Walji or Brother Shane Hashim. Best way and the quickest way to get the excuse letters is to email secretariat@sijpa.org, and we'll make sure that you get the letter. For those who don't have access to email, we do have a few letters here that we can provide at the center. As many of you, I'm sure, are aware and have made me aware, our app for the phone is not working. After continuous battles with the vendor trying to get it troubleshooted, we're not able to get our program updates on there. And as of now, I don't think you can even get the prayer time. So what we've learned in the past few weeks is our vendor now has changed and has gone a different direction with his career. So we have no longer anyone supporting our app. So we've worked very hard to get a new vendor and someone that can provide this pretty fast and get this up and running. So we're just in the final process of getting the approvals through Apple and the other store, and inshallah we'll have that up and running as well. So in the meantime, you can delete the current app that you have. It is no longer functional. Again, we apologize for inconvenience. I know the prayer times was one thing that we're using that quite a bit. So what we have and what we'll update is our current website. With it's outdated, we'll get the current prayer times on there for the interim. As well, good news, we had some issues with the vendor that was working on our new website, and we have now taken control of that, and infrastructure is already in place. We're just waiting for the content, which we've reached out to several scholars who will be helping us. It's going to be a different website in terms of our approach and what our goal is with the website, and I'll share that with you in the coming weeks before the launch. But that's also not far away from going live. A couple of other changes that we've made. We've kind of improved all around our technology. Just before the start of this holy month of Muharram, we've upgraded our live stream as well. We're no longer using Vimeo or the live stream platform. We've now gone to YouTube. So that is, you just click the link on the website, it'll automatically redirect you. And as well, when we get the app and running, there'll be a direct link to there. The other thing that we've upgraded is our online donation system. That was upgraded as well. If you click the link, you'll see a new interface. It's a lot easier and quicker to use. It's a new platform, looks a little different, but your existing username and password will work. I do know many of you were providing monthly contributions that were recurring, that were automatic. Those have all had to be canceled because we have a new processor. This will save us a lot in fees, which is what the upgrade is providing us. We're going to hopefully be saving money. So those of you who were doing the monthly subscriptions, you will need to re-register your subscriptions again. Those were canceled, and we'll be sending out emails to notify you as well. With that as well, later this week, Tuesday, we're getting the training, but we'll also be able to do text donations. So we'll have instructions on how that will work. So inshallah, a lot of upgrades have already been in progress, and we'll be rolling them out soon. Sponsorships, again, through generous donors, many of the nights have been taken. I think we have 2 nights still available. So please see either myself or any member of the management committee or ladies committee if you wish to sponsor a niyaz during these 12 nights. as well. The donation link is set up with the Muharram Suffer Fund. We do ask all members to please donate generously to the Muharram Suffer Fund. Assalamu alaikum.
Just recite 5 times I am a yujibu, especially for all those who are sick, for the safety of Muslims, our holy places, and all those in need of du'as. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه 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 ويكشف السوء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بر حبيب خدا ختم الأنبياء محمد وآل محمد صلوات
رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على نبي الحرمين وإمام القبلتين وجد الحسن والحسين الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين والذين ذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على صاحب دعوة النبوية والسولة الحيدرية والعصمة الفاطمية والحلم الحسنية والشجاعة الحسينية والإبادة السجادية والمآثر الباقرية والآثار الجعفرية والعلوم الكاذمية والحجج الرذبية والجود التقوية والنكاوة النقوية والحيبة الأسكرية والغيبة الإلهية. اللهم عجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه. أما بعد فقد قال الله في كتابه الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فوجد عبدا من عبادنا آتيناه رحمة من عندنا وعلمناه من لدنا علما. صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the love of Fatima az-Zahra, salamullahi alayha, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
for the hastening of the reappearance of the master of our time. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Indeed, one of the most fascinating incidents mentioned within the Holy Quran is that encounter which took place between Nabi Musa and that rather mysterious individual whom the Quran describes as Abdun min ibadina, a servant from amongst our servants, otherwise known as Al-Khidr. This incident, which is of course found in Surah Al-Kahf, chapter 18, between verses 60 to 82, is an incident from which a number of practical lessons can be derived, but on top of that, not only are there many concepts found within this chapter that allow us to understand the realities of life, you find there are a number of things within this chapter that allow us to facilitate our understanding of the movement of Sayyid al-Shuhada within this holy month. As in when the Prophet of God was upon the mimbar, one day you find the tradition, it states that Imam al-Hussein as a child, he walks into Masjid al-Nabawi. When the Imam, he walks in towards the mosque of the Prophet, the tradition states that the Imam, he falls upon the ground. As the Imam, he falls upon the ground, you find Rasulullah from the mimbar, he goes towards the ground, he picks up Sayyid al-Shuhada, he returns towards the mimbar. And he says a line which is a verdict, which is a mandate for each and every one of us. He says, Hada Husaynun fa'rifuhu wansuruhu. He says, this is Hussein. Recognize Hussein and support this Hussein. You find this word fa'rifu is in the command form in Arabic, that the Prophet of God, who would not speak unless it's revelation, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. That Prophet of God said, understand Sayyid al-Shuhada. And you find there are a number of things within this incident that have been mentioned that allow us to understand the movement of Sayyid al-Shuhada. The first angle that links this story of Musa and Khidr towards the movement of the Imam is that you find that this story is placed within the 18th chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Kahf. You find this entire chapter has an immense linking with Sayyid al-Shuhada. That history, it records that when the head of Imam al-Hussein was being taken from Karbala towards Damascus, you find the onlookers would look at the women of Ali Muhammad as those individuals carrying the head of the Imam would have the head in front of the women. You find it is at that point that history records that miraculously the blessed head of the Imam begins to recite the Quran, and it recites the verse, أَمْ حَسِبْتَ أَنَّ أَصْحَابَ الْكَهْفِ وَرَقِيمِ كَانُوا مِنْ آيَاتِنَا عَجَبًا. It recites what? It says that, do you suppose that the people of the cave and the inscription are from amongst our astonishing signs? The first purpose of the recital of the head of the Imam is that it took the attention away from the women, that the onlookers, they would look at the women of Ali Muhammad. But from the second angle, it goes to show that the movement of Imam al-Hussein is a movement of the Quran. That no part of the movement of Sayyid al-Shuhada was separated or conflicting with the Quran. That when the Imam, he leaves Medina, even in the beginning of this journey, he recites the verse of the Quran. He recites that verse that Musa recited as he left from the land of Pharaoh, and it says, فَخَرَجَ مِنْهَا خَائِفًا يَتَرَقَّبُ. That he left in fear, in a state of vigilance. But you find when the head of the Imam, it recites a verse from the Quran, it recites a verse from this chapter, Surah Al-Kahf. This shows that this chapter must have a linking with the movement of the Imam, because there is wisdom in which verse he recites. And within this chapter, you find that there are three main stories. The first of the stories is the story of the people of the cave. The second story is that meeting between Musa and Khidr. And the third story is the story of Dhul Qarnayn. You find that each of these stories, what links these stories is that they play a relevance in your life, and the concept of a barzakh or an intermediary barrier is found in each of these stories. That within the first story, you find that even though the people of the cave were within this world, there was no access towards them. That when Musa and Khidr meet, there was a barrier in the types of knowledge they had, and it's evident within the story of Dhul Qarnayn as well. You find that this chapter, the traditions they state, that it is linked with the movement of the 12th Imam. How? The tradition, it states that the one who wants to protect his iman in Akhirul Zaman, and the one who wants to be safe from the inflictions of the Dajjal, it is upon him to recite Suratul Kahf. And then when we say that it's linked with the 12th Imam, you find the 12th Imam's movement is no different than the movement of Sayyid al-Shuhada. I recited that tradition yesterday, the tradition of Rayhan ibn Shabib. This tradition, which even Sayyid ibn Tawus, he narrates in Iqbal al-A'mal, and Shaykh Abbas al-Qummi, he narrates in Nafas al-Mahmum. You find at one point within this tradition, the Imam says to Yabna Shabib, O Yabna Shabib, know that 4,000 angels came to my grandfather upon the day of Ashura. And when they found that my grandfather was killed, they decided to stay upon that spot and mourn for my grandfather Hussein until the return of Al-Qa'im. And when the Qa'im returns, they will support him, and their slogan will be Ya Latarat al-Hussein, O vengeance for the blood of Hussein. Now from the first level of this tradition, we understand that the angels are those creations which were created for the ubudiyah and the servitude of Allah. That if the angels transcend the realms of reality from their realm upon this earth to mourn Sayyid al-Shuhada, you find there is no separation between this and it being considered an act of ibadat of Allah. But you find from the second level, this tradition shows that there is a linkage between the movement of the Imam of the time and Sayyid al-Shuhada. Thus, there is a linkage between this chapter and the Imam. Now, the second level, why this incident of Musa and Khidr relates to the movement of Sayyid al-Shuhada, is that one of the main concepts which is understood, and it's one of the fundamental concepts within this incident, is that mankind needs to realize that there is a level of knowledge which is not acquired by the five senses. There is a level of knowledge which is ghaib, a level of knowledge which is unseen, and that the apparent of the act is not always the reality of the act, that there is possible that things may be different from how they appear upon the outward. You find this relates to Sayyid al-Shuhada in what sense? When the Imam he leaves from Medina towards Karbala, you find there are a number of individuals, they only looked at the movement of the Imam from the exoteric and the outward angle. You find one of these individuals, they would come to the Imam, they would advise him that instead of going towards Karbala or Kufa, go towards Yemen, go towards other places so you wouldn't be killed. These individuals, unknowingly or knowingly, there were some people like Abdullah bin Zubayr, for their own political ambition, they wanted the Imam out of Medina. But then there were individuals who would sincerely invite the Imam. You find knowingly or unknowingly, they became the opponents of the divine will and the divine plan of Allah. One of these individuals was a person by the name of Umar al-Atraf. Umar al-Atraf, otherwise known as Umar bin Ali, he comes towards Imam al-Hussein. He says that I heard my brother Imam al-Hassan state that our father had stated that, O Hussein, you will be killed. And I fear that this avoiding of allegiance towards Yazid is that cause which will lead to your death. So I advise that you give allegiance towards him so you aren't killed. Imam al-Hussein says to this individual, He says, my father told me on authority of my grandfather that I will be killed, and that my grave will be near the grave of my father. Are you trying to tell me something which I already don't know? The Imam is saying that if you know this, I know this as well. But he says, no, I will never bear humiliation upon this world. You find this individual, he only looked at Karbala from one angle, from one lens. He didn't understand the reality of Karbala. You know, oftentimes we make that same mistake. If I were to ask you, what is Karbala? Some people will say Karbala is a movement of social justice, or Karbala is this, or Karbala is that. Each of these is an aspect of Karbala, it is not the reality of Karbala. Each of these is an aspect of Karbala. The true reality of Karbala lies in between Allah and the Imam, for it is the carrying out of the divine will of God upon this earth. Things have an outward, but there are always other realities. You know, I remember that tradition. They come to the fifth Imam. They say to Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, they say to the fifth Imam that why was your grandfather called Abu al-Qasim? The Imam says because he had a son by the name of Qasim who of course died in infancy, thus his name is the father of Qasim. The companion, he says, Zidni bayanan. No, tell me more about this name. He says that Allah has given the Prophet of God the right to distribute khair and blessings upon this earth. That he is the Prophet of God. Qasim means the one who distributes. Thus, he is the father of those blessings which are distributed. He says, no, wazidni bayanan, increase for me more. That each time he would ask the question, another level of reality would be unveiled. The more we reflect upon Karbala, the more the different realities of this movement will be unveiled for us. At that point, he says, no. He says what this name Abul Qasim it means is that our grandfather Ali was Qasimul Jannati wan Nar. Our grandfather Ali would distribute between those of hell and heaven. Rasul Allah was the one who raised Ali ibn Abi Talib. Thus, he is Abul Qasim. Our ulama, they state that if this companion was like Hisham ibn al-Hakam, if this companion was like Zurara bin A'yun, if this companion was like Muhammad bin Muslim, somebody who had ma'rifat of Ahlul Bayt, he would have kept asking the question, and in return he would have kept uncovering a different reality and gaining more layers of this knowledge. But the point of the tradition is that not everything is how it is perceived. There are other levels. One must come with a complete vision of that movement, and that is what the story of Musa and Khidr it teaches us. You find this incident, it begins that Nabiullah Musa, after he defeats Pharaoh, after he goes and he preaches to Banu Israel, a point comes near the end of the life of Musa that Musa, he thinks to himself that is there anyone more knowledgeable upon me than me upon this earth? Now, Musa is a prophet of Allah. It wasn't out of arrogance. It was that everyone he would meet is those people who are guiding them. And the leader of society and religious affairs must be more knowledgeable than the ones who are being guided. So Musa, he has this thought that is there anyone more knowledgeable than me? Allah, he says, O Musa, go and find this servant of ours. The tradition it states, the Quran it speaks that Musa he takes his successor Yusha bin Nun. And then the Quran it begins to speak about this incident. It states that as they are going, it says, وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِفَتَاهُ لا أبره حتى أبلغ مجمع البحرين أو أمضي حقبا. Musa, he says that I will not stop until I meet that spot where the two oceans, the two seas, they meet, or I will continue traveling. Allah said to Musa, O Musa, this servant of ours will be found at that point known as Majma'ul Bahrain. That point where the two seas, the two oceans, they meet. Musa, he says to Yusha bin Nun, I will keep traveling until I reach there, or I will go and journey Hukoba a long time. The Mufassirin, they write that this word Hukoba, it means 80 years, but in its usage, it signifies that Musa is willing to go to the ends of this earth to acquire knowledge. That if one wants true spiritual knowledge, even if that journey requires travel, even if that journey requires effort, the one in pursuit of this knowledge, he is willing to make that journey. That is the first lesson we derive from this incident. But the story, it states that when Yusha and Musa, they leave, they take with them a fish that was dead. And the sign which Allah gave towards them is that when you reach that spot where this servant, this teacher of ours who has this special ilm, at that spot the fish will come back to life. That's how you know where he will be. You find as they're traveling, Musa, he takes rest, he goes to sleep. He tells Yusha bin Nun that if the fish, it goes and it leaves at this spot while I'm sleeping, make sure you tell me. You find while he was sleeping, the fish, it goes out. Yusha doesn't tell Musa not to disturb him. But when Musa, he wakes up, you find Yusha bin Nun forgets to mention this and they journey onwards. The Quran, it says, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَجْمَعَ بَيْنِهِمَا نَسِيَ حُوتَهُمَا فَاتَّخَذَ سَبِيلَهُ فِي الْبَحْرِ سَرَبًا. It says when they reached that spot, he forgot to mention the fish and it made its way into the sea. That spot where the fish it left was called Majma'ul Bahrain. Why is it called Majma'ul Bahrain? You find that the Red Sea, it splits into two areas. Some, they went with the interpretation that it was the Strait of Aqaba and the Suez Strait meeting, and over there is Majma'ul Bahrain. But no, you find that a group of ulama, they stated that these two seas that were meeting is something different. It is not the outward interpretation. What this means is that the sea of exoteric knowledge, Sahib Shariat Musa, the one who had knowledge of the law, the one who had knowledge of society, was meeting that individual who had knowledge of the batin and the inner secrets of reality, Khidr. That these two individuals, they come together. And you find it in these two knowledges that come together at this point. That Musa represents the law. Khidr represents the inward reality. But we ask this question to ourselves, that in anywhere in history, is there an existent where both levels of knowledge are combined in that existent? You find when you come to the door of Ahlul Bayt, when they ask the sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, they say to the Imam, O Imam, who was more knowledgeable, you or Musa or Khidr? The Imam, he replies by saying that if Musa and Khidr were in front of me, both of them would be learning from me, Ja'far as-Sadiq. That if you want knowledge of the outward, you go to the door of Ali Muhammad. If you want knowledge of the inner realities, you go to the door of Ali Muhammad. That's why the traditions, they state that Khidr, although he's been given this life, he would go to the doorsteps of Ahlul Bayt. That within the time of Rasulullah, Khidr, he goes towards Rasulullah. The Prophet, he says, Oh Khidr, do you have a question? He says, yes, I do. He says, you see that child? Go and ask that child. Khidr, he goes, he speaks with Imam al-Hasan. He returns towards Rasulullah. Rasulullah says, how did you find this grandson of mine? He says, Ya Rasulullah, it's as if you answered the questions for me. You find this is that doorstep of Ali Muhammad. This is the doorstep of Ahlul Bayt. And you find the story, it says Majma'ul Bahrain. So as they continue this journey, that the fish, it goes out. Yusha, he doesn't mention it to Musa. You find the Quran, it says, فَلَمَّا جَاوَزَا. that after they had passed that point, they begin to travel farther. At that point, Musa says, قَالَ لِفَتَاهُ آتِنَا غَدَاءَنَا لَقِينَ مِنْ سَفَرِنَا هَذَا نَسَبًا. He says, I feel hunger, bring that fish. At that point, Yusha, he realizes that he didn't tell Musa that where the fish had gone in towards the ocean. So he says, قَالَ أَرَأَيْتَ إِذْ أَوَيْنَا إِلَى الصَّخْرَةِ فَإِنِّي نَسِيتُ الْحُوتَ. He says, did you not see that when we took rest by the rock, I had forgotten the fish over there? And then he says, مَا أَنْسَانِهُ إِلَّا الشَّيْطَانُ أَنْ أَذْكُرَهُ وَاتَّخَذَ سَبِيلَهُ فِي الْبَحْرِ عَجَبًا. It says, none made me forget except for Shaitan, and it made its way towards the sea in a strange form. You find many who subscribe to the spiritual way of life when they interpret this verse. They say the fish at one level, it represents human consciousness. That when the human being, he wants to acquire this knowledge, he wants to go on this journey of spiritual knowledge, it requires a level of conscience and attention towards Allah. But oftentimes when we begin the journey, we go in towards ghafla and heedlessness. You find them forgetting the fish, it represents that man often becomes heedless. But when you become heedless, what do? You return towards that reality, you return towards the reality of Allah. Musa, he says at that point, قَالَ ذَلِكَ مَا كُنَّا نَبْغِي فَارْتَدَّ عَلَىٰ آثَارِهِمَا قَصَصًا. He says to Yusha that that fish where it went, that is the spot that we were searching for, and they return towards that spot, and that is where they meet Nabiullah Khidr. You find Khidr, of course it's debated whether Khidr is a prophet or not, and that's a discussion for another time. The focus of this lecture is deriving lessons from this incident and relating it to the movement of Sayyid al-Shuhada. You find over here the Quran, it speaks, and it gives one of the most important verses within the entire Quran. In the field of epistemology, or the discussion of the nature of knowledge, it says, فَوَجَدَ عَبْدًا مِّنْ عِبَادِنَا آتَيْنَاهُ رَحْمَةً مِّنْ عِنْدِنَا وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِنْ لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. It says over there, Musa, he finds a servant from amongst our servants who had been given a mercy from us. And he had been given this knowledge from us, min ladunna ilma, that he was given what is called ilm ladunni or ilm ladunni. You find this knowledge, and of course I discussed this in a lecture previously upon the hadith of Unwan al-Basri, so I won't analyze this verse to avoid repetition from that lecture. You find this knowledge, what's the level of knowledge that isn't acquired through reading and writing. Why? Because the verse, it says, فَوَجَدَ عَبْدًا مِّنْ عِبَادِنَا. It goes to show within this verse that when one becomes the servant of Allah, you find the doors they open for that individual, not only in the blessings of his life, but you find in terms of that knowledge that individual can acquire as well. For this is a different form of knowledge over here. You know, many within the world today, they say that the only level of knowledge is that knowledge which is acquired through the five senses. That either you see something, or you hear it, or you touch, or you taste, that these are the only realms of acquiring knowledge. But you find, why is this way of thought a faulty way of thought? You find this premise that knowledge is only gained by the five senses. This premise itself can't be proven. Why? Because this premise itself is not something which can be learned by the five senses. You find that there is a contradiction, that there is knowledge, that Allah's servants, they can acquire a level of knowledge which isn't of that reality through the five senses, that they have this servitude within them. You see within the story, the next lesson is that when Musa, he meets Khidr, he meets him with humility. That you look at Musa, Sahib al-Sharia, Musa ulul Adam, one of the arch prophets of Allah, When Allah, He said, "Oh Musa, go and find Khidr," Musa didn't argue, for arguing with Allah was the way of shaitan. Musa, he accepted that reality. He went and he found that individual known as Al-Khidr. When he finds Al-Khidr, it says, قَالَ لَهُ مُوسَى هَلْ أَتَّبِعُكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُعَلِّمَنِي بِمَا عُلِّمْتَ رُشْدًا? He says that, can I follow you so I can gain that knowledge which you have been taught so that I can be guided? You find the Quran, it alludes that when you acquire knowledge, the purpose of that knowledge is in terms of guidance. That when you acquire knowledge, the goal of that knowledge isn't just the acquisition of knowledge. The goal of that knowledge is to acquire a level of guidance within your life. At that point, you find Khidr, he says towards Musa, لَن تَسْتَطِيعَ مَعِيَ صَبْرًا. It says, قَالَ لَن تَسْتَطِيعَ مَعِيَ صَبْرًا وَكَيْفَ تُصْبِرُ عَلَى مَا لَمْ تُحِطْ بِهِ خُبْرًا. It says that you won't be able to have patience with me. And how can you have patience about that which you do not know? You know, people ask the question that if Sayyid al-Shuhada, he knew about Karbala, he knew about what would happen to Ali Akbar, he knew what would happen to Abbas, why did he go to Karbala? You know, the Quran, it shows that for one to be given that knowledge, they have to have a level of patience within them. The Quran, it says, وَكَيْفَ تُصْبِرُ عَلَى مَا لَمْ تُحِطْ بِهِ خُبْرًا. This verse, it shows that when you give responsibility to someone, you do it based upon their capacity. Khidr says to Musa, "Oh Musa, you don't have that capacity to know what I know, for you look at things from the outward, but I look at the inner realities of the act." At that point, Musa, he says, قَالَ سَتَجِدُنِي إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ صَابِرًا وَلَا أَعْصِي لَكَ أَمْرًا. He says, Insha'Allah, you will find me patient and I will not go against your command. Musa did not say that you will find me patient. He says, by the will of Allah, you will find me patient. This goes to show that even if he was not able to handle the knowledge of Khidr, he linked his patience with the will of Allah. That even if he didn't carry it out, you find he wouldn't have been lying, he wouldn't have been false in that area. And it goes to show the one who wants this knowledge, patience should come within their heart. You find this line, the fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin, salawatullahi wassalamuhu alayh. Imam Zainul Abidin, he goes to show that this Sayyida Zainab, not only did she have this form of knowledge, but it goes to show her status in one line. He says to his aunt Zainab, "Anti bihamdillah, alimatun ghayr mu'allama." He says, "Oh my aunt Zainab, you by the praise of Allah are that learned lady whom nobody taught towards you." You find that this knowledge is given towards the one who has patience, as this incident of Musa and Khidr is showing. This is that same Sayyida Zainab. You know, it's one thing to show sabr in difficulties. You and I, when we have difficulties, our maximum level is to have patience. That's what we try to do in our lives. But Ahlul Bayt are those individuals that they would do shukr in difficulties. They would thank Allah in difficulties. When Ibn Ziyad, he speaks to Sayyida Zainab, he says, "How did you find Karbala? Your brother was killed. Your women, your family was taken as captives." She says, "Ma ra'aytu illa jamila," that I saw nothing except beauty. وَكَيْفَ تُصْبِرُ عَلَى مَا لَمْ تُحِطْ بِهِ خُبْرًا. Don't think the status of Sayyida Zainab is something small. You find the incident of Musa and Khidr, it continues. Khidr, he goes and Musa goes with him. First they go towards a ship. When they go towards the ship, you find Khidr, he makes a hole within the ship. Musa, he says to Khidr that you have done something which is heinous, something which isn't appropriate. Shay'an imra. After that, Khidr says, didn't I say to you that you wouldn't be able to have patience with what I am about to show you? You find Musa says, no, don't take me at fault for this. After this, Khidr says, very well. You find after that, Khidr, he goes towards a boy, he kills that boy. Musa, he says that you have done something shay'an nukra. You have done something which is egregious, something which is shocking you have done. Khidr says that didn't I say to you that lan tastatiya ma'iya sabra, that you wouldn't be able to have patience? Musa says very well that if I ask you one more time, then that means that it is our separation. I won't follow you. The third place Musa and Khidr they go is that they go towards a town. Within that town, as they were asking for food, they were travelers, everyone in the town rejected them. That they were rude towards them. Khidr, he sees a broken wall. He goes, he erects the wall, he fixes it. Musa, he says to Khidr that why did you do this? You could have taken an ajr, you could have taken a wage for this. That the people in the town, they're rude. They didn't give us anything. We don't have food. Why didn't you do it for a price? You find Khidr says that this is the separation between you and I. He says, I'll tell you the interpretation of these three incidents. But after this, that means we go our separate ways. Khidr, he begins to speak. He says, Amma safinatu fakanat limasakina ya'maluna fil bahr. فأردت أن أعيبها وكان وراءها ملك يأخذ كل سفينة غصبا. It states that as for the ship, the reason that I made the hole within the ship, and look at the word, it says فَأَرَدْتُ أَنْ أَعِيبَهَا, and I'll come back towards this. It says the reason I brought this hole within the ship is that it belonged to some poor individuals who would work upon the ocean. They would work over there. And there was a king who would confiscate the ships without due right. The reason I made the ship is I put damage in there so that king wouldn't take it. That of course he would want a ship which is working. You find that Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they teach us that oftentimes when they carry out an act, that to prevent the worst from happening, they do something which may not outwardly seem appropriate to the rest of society. You find history, it testifies that one day Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, Imam as-Sadiq, he speaks out against Zurara bin A'yun. Everyone, they begin to think that Zurara bin A'yun is always with Imam as-Sadiq. Why is the Imam speaking against Zurara? The Imam, he writes to Zurara, O Zurara, the reason I spoke against you over here is because I needed to protect the lives of us, because the Abbasid Khalifas, they were after us. And O Zurara, your example is like the ship in the story of Musa and Khidr. You find on the way towards Karbala, when Sayyid al-Shuhada, he meets Hur, he says a line towards Hur. He says, O Hur, may your mother weep over you. He says, may your mother weep over you. That this is something which is insulting towards Hur. But the Imam is not there to belittle anyone. The Imam isn't there to insult anyone. The Imam is there for the hidayah and the guidance of mankind. The Urafa, they state that Hur, with that realization, it changed the entire destiny of Hur. Because it's at that moment Hur, he begins to reflect on who the mother of Hussein was. He says that if her mother was anyone other than Fatima, I would have said the same lines towards you. You see, the Imam often may do something which doesn't look appropriate from the outward level to the common man, but it's for the greater good of society. And this is what Khidr, he does when he pokes the hole within that boat. You find after that, he says, as for that boy, Ammal Ghulamu, it says, Fakana Abawahu Mu'minini, that his father, that his parents were believers. And it says, Fa'aradna, It says we wanted to protect them from tughyan and kufr. So what did we do? We exchanged them for someone who would be more pure and somebody who would be akraba rahma. Somebody who would be closer towards them. Find the traditions of Ahlul Bayt, they state that this ghulam over here, this boy who was killed, that instead of him, Allah gave those parents a daughter. From the lineage of that daughter, this is mentioned in Tafsir Nur al-Taqalain, there were 70 prophets in the lineage of that daughter. People ask the question, that isn't this against the justice of Allah that Khidr, he kills this boy? You find every single thing has an agent cause and a real hakiki cause, which is Allah. You find Khidr was the agent cause in this situation, carrying out the role that Malik al-Maut plays. That Allah used him as that agent cause. Then after that, he speaks about the wall. He says, as for the wall, it belonged to two orphans. Their father was a righteous individual. The reason I did the reason it says the reason Allah did this is that when they come to age, they will be able to get that treasure. It says, فَأَرَادَ رَبُّكَ أَن يَبْلُغَ أَشُدَّهُمَا يَسْتَخْرِجَ كَنزَهُمَا رَحْمَةً مِّن رَبِّكَ. It gives the explanation to these three. But you find each of these three incidents, when you look at the wording, you find the wording, it differs in the tense. In the first incident, you find Khidr, he says that I put the hole within the ship. In the second one, it says that we killed the child and replaced the child. In the third one, it says Allah is the one who erected the wall. That why is there a difference? Khidr, he shows humility. That act of putting the hole within the boat, it may look like something which is not appropriate. It may look like something which is wrong. So Khidr, he ascribes himself as the cause. In the second one, when it says we replace the child, the reason it says we is that the first part of killing the child, something which isn't good, it refers towards Khidr. And the second part, it refers towards Allah. And the third act, which was solely good, you find it refers towards Allah. And this was the incident of Musa and Khidr. At the point you find as they're separating, Khidr, he says, and Musa, he speaks to Khidr, he says, oh Khidr, that you see this bird, it takes a drop of water from the ocean and it drops it upon the ground. That, oh Khidr, do you also know the interpretation of this act? Khidr says, oh Musa, this bird is teaching us that our knowledge compared to the knowledge of Allah is not even like a drop in front of the ocean. You find this was that incident, and from this a number of different realities unveil, such as those individuals who are the wali of Allah and who have that knowledge of the unseen within them. And it was upon the 2nd of Muharram that Sayyid al-Shuhada, with this knowledge, he knew that he had reached the plains of Karbala. The tradition, it states that when the horse of Imam al-Hussein reached Karbala, his horse wouldn't move any farther. The Maqatil, they state that 7 times the Imam, he changes his horse. After changing the horse 7 times, he calls the people who are living there. He says, Masmu hadihil ard. He says, what's the name of this land? They say, Ismuha al-Ghadiriya. He says, Alaha ismun akhar. Does it have another name? They say its name is Nainawa. He says, Alaha ismun akhar. Does it have another name? They say the name is Shatiul Furat. He says, does it have another name? They say this land is also called Karbun wa Bala, that this is the land of Karbala. The Imam, he begins to look at the plains of Karbala. He says, this is where our tents will be. And then he says this line. He says, Ha huna tuqtalu rijaluna. He says, over here our men will be killed. And he says, Ha huna wallahi tudbahu atfaluna. He says, over here our children will be slaughtered. He says, over here our women will be taken captive. It's stated within the narrations that when they reached Karbala, there was no peace in the heart of Sayyid. She says, the Imam after that, he calls the tribe of Banu Asad. He says, oh Banu Asad, I want to buy this land from you. They say, oh our master, we will give it to you. And this is the spot where the Imam remembered his Shia. He remembered his Zahirin. He says, oh Banu Asad, put dust upon our bodies. We're praying upon the plains of Karbala. Put dust upon our bodies. You find the incident of Karbala, it happened. The bodies they laid on the ground for 3 days. Banu Asad, the men they come out, the women they come out. They see that the bodies of the companions are upon the plains of Karbala. The women they say to the men that aren't you going to bury the body of Hussein and fulfill your promise? They say that we fear Ibn Ziyad. At that point, the women they say that if you won't bury the body of Hussein, that we'll bury these bodies. At that point, they say very well, we'll bury the bodies. But when they come out, what do they see? That there's no head upon the bodies, that the limbs have been scattered, and they're looking at the bodies from the direction of Kufa. A man dressed in black, he goes in between the bodies, he goes towards one body, he falls upon that body, he says, oh Father, after you, they took the hijab of Zainab. He says, oh Father, after you, they hit your Sakina. You find Banu Asad, they would come towards Imam Zainul Abidin. They would say, oh captive, how should we bury the bodies? They made one grave for Habib ibn Madahir. They dug another grave for the companions. After that, they say to the Imam, oh captive, there is a body by the Quran. When we pick one side of the body, the other side is falls down. When we pick the other side of the body, the other side is falls down. The Imam says, after the Imam, he says, "Oh, Banu Asad, step back, for only a Masoom can bury a Masoom." He goes to the body of his father. He looks towards Medina. He says, "Oh, grandfather, Rasulallah, help me, my grandfather." He puts his abba on the ground. He collects the pieces of his father. He puts it within the grave. He writes on the grave, "هذا قبر أبي عبد الله الذي قتل قريب وقتنا." This is the grave of Hussein. The Riwayat states that as he's putting the body of his father in the ground, he hears a voice from the body. That voice, it says, "My baby, my baby." Imam Zain al-Abidin, he said, "Oh, Banu Asad, where's the body of the 6-month child?" He puts the body on his God, on the chest. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. ماتم حسين.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. اونچا رہے اپنا لہو، اونچا رہے اپنا لہو، اونچا رہے اپنا لہو، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، جب تک ہے دور آسمان، جب تک ہے دور آسمان، سن لے یہ ہر پیر و جوان، سن لے یہ ہر پیر و جوان، آواز شبیر کے بڑھتا رہے یہ کارواں، رکنے نہ پائے یہ قدم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے اپنا، کب تک نہ مانے گا کوئی، کب تک نہ مانے گا کوئی، وہ وقت آئے گا کبھی، وہ وقت آئے گا کبھی، ہر قلب پر چھا جائے گا اپنا حسین ابن علی، اس گھر پہ ہر سر ہوگا غم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے اپنا، زندہ یہ بیداری رہے، زندہ یہ بیداری رہے، یہ سلسلہ جاری رہے، سلسلہ جاری رہے، ہم ہو نہ ہو اس بزم میں قائم آزاداری رہے، رہے سو کٹ پہ دم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، 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 اونچا رہے، یہ عزامہ
رضا ہے ہماری یہ بقا مجلس و ماتم کی خاطر رب نے ہم کو ہے چنا ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا ہم عزادار حسین زہرا کی دعا ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے 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 زہرا کی دعا گھر ہمارا فرش مجلس اور بطر کرب و بلا ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا گھر ہمارا فرش مجلس اور بدر کرب و بلا ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا قلب زہرا کی دعا سے آئے اس دنیا میں ہم مقصد تخلیق اپنا ہے شہ بالا کا غم ہے لبوں پہ ذکر مقتل آنکھ میں اشک اذا ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا صاحبہ سر پر ردائے زینب دلگیر ہے ہر گھڑی اپنا سہارا ماتم شبیر ہے پرچم عباس غازی ہے ہمارا رہنما ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا ہم سوالی ہیں صدا سے حیدر طرار کے ہم بیکاری ہیں صفی عباس کے دربار کے بادشاہوں سے بھی بڑھ کر ہے ہمارا مرتبہ ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا ہم عزادار حسینی ہم ہے زہرا کی دعا خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے۔ بیمار ہوں مرتی ہوں، بیمار ہوں مرتی ہوں، یہ سب تم کو پتا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے۔ جس روز سے دیکھا ہے محرم کا نیا چاند، جس روز سے دیکھا ہے محرم کا نیا چاند، یہ کیسے لکھوں بابا، یہ کیسے لکھوں بابا کہ دل ڈوب گیا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے۔ وعدہ تو کیا بابا نبھانے نہیں آئے، وعدہ تو کیا بابا نبھانے نہیں آئے، بیمار سے کس بات پہ، بیمار سے کس بات پہ منہ پھیر لیا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا سب مل کے زیادہ، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے۔ بابا مجھے دستی ہے یہ تنہائی وطن کی، بابا مجھے دستی ہے یہ تنہائی وطن کی، یہ گھر کی اداسی ہے، یہ گھر کی اداسی ہے، تو پھر قبر میں کیا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے، خط فاطمہ کو لکھا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا لوٹاتے ہیں گھر شام کے ہوتے ہی پرندے، لوٹاتے ہیں گھر شام کے ہوتے ہی پرندے، کنبا میرا کیوں اپنی، کنبا میرا کیوں اپنی سفر میں ہی رہا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا لکھا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے۔ تم جب سے گئے گھر سے، تم جب سے گئے گھر سے یہ گھر قبر ہے میری، تم جب سے گئے گھر سے یہ گھر قبر ہے میری، میں زندہ ہوں ایسے کہ، میں زندہ ہوں ایسے کہ کوئی لاشا پڑا ہے، خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے بابا میرے اصغر کا تو کچھ حال سناؤ بابا میرے اصغر کا تو کچھ حال سناؤ اس بے زبان مجھ کو اس بے زبان مجھ کو یاد کیا ہے خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے بیمار ہوں مرتی ہوں بیمار ہوں مرتی ہوں یہ سب تم کو پتا ہے خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے خط فاطمہ صغرا نے یہ بابا کو لکھا ہے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے 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 مر گئی پر نہ کبھی مر گئی پر نہ کبھی ہاتھ ہٹے کانوں سے ہے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے مر گئی پر نہ کبھی مر گئی پر نہ کبھی ہاتھ ہٹے کانوں سے ہے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے شام جاتے ہوئے ناکے سے گریوں بچی شام جاتے ہوئے ناکے سے گریوں بچی مشک غازی کی گری جیسے کٹے شانوں سے اے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے اے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے چوکے اٹھتی تھی مدینے میں یہ کہہ کر بانو چوکے اٹھتی تھی مدینے میں یہ کہہ کر بانو کوئی آواز مجھے دیتا ہے ویرانوں سے اے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے کتنی بے رحمی سے ظالم نے اتارے وہ گوہر کتنی بے رحمی سے ظالم نے اتارے وہ گوہر چین بیٹی کو جو پہنائے تھے ارمانوں سے اے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے اے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے اے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے مجھ کو کرتے میں ہی دفنانا سکینہ نے کہا مجھ کو کرتے میں ہی دفنانا سکینہ نے کہا مت کفن مانگنا ہے بھائی مسلمانوں سے اے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے اے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے اے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے سب چلے جاتے ہیں شبیر کو رو کر اکبر سب چلے جاتے ہیں شبیر کو رو کر اکبر ایک بات نہیں جاتی ہے عزادانوں سے اے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے اے غم سکینہ اتنے مسلمانوں سے اے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے سب چلے جاتے ہیں شبیر کو رو کر اکبر سب چلے جاتے ہیں شبیر کو رو کر اکبر ایک بچی نہیں جاتی ہے اداکاروں سے اے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے غم سکینہ کو ملے اتنے مسلمانوں سے ہے غم سکینہ کو ملے مسلمانوں سے عابد بیمار تھا وہ عابد بیمار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا اور شام کا بازار تھا اور شام کا بازار تھا اور مصطفیٰ کی بیٹیاں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن حسین شبیر کی اولادی شبیر کی اولادی سینے پہ جو شاہ کے پلی سینے پہ جو شاہ کے پلی سینے پہ جو پلی سینے پہ جو کے پلی جس کی ابا بن میں جلی جس کی ابا بن میں جلی اوپر تماچوں امام مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین 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 یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین وہ زینب و کلثوم تھی وہ زینب و کلثوم تھی چادر سے جو محروم تھی چادر سے جو محروم تھی نامحرموں کے درمیان نامحرموں کے درمیان اور مرتضیٰ کی بیٹیاں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا جمعت میں مولا حق امام حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین پیاسے گلے خنجر چلے پیاسے گلے خنجر چلے چادر چھنی خیمے جلے چادر چھنی خیمے جلے عباس کے پرچم تلے عباس کے پرچم چلے روتی رہی سیدانیاں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا رب حق زہرا توفیق یہ عطا ہو مرنے سے پہلے یارا دیدار کربلا ہو یا رب حق زہرا توفیق یہ عطا ہو مرنے سے پہلے یارا دیدار کربلا ہو جو عز کربلا ہے ہر عز سے سوا ہے اس خاک کربلا میں شہ کا لہو ملا ہے شہ کا لہو ملا ہے ہر لا دوا مرض کی یہ خاک ہی دوا ہو مرنے سے پہلے یارا دیدار کربلا ہو یارا کے زہرا توفیق یہ عطا ہو مرنے سے پہلے یارا دیدار کربلا ہو میں بھی تو ماتمی ہوں ذاکی حسین دادا نوحہ پڑھا ہے میں نے ہم شکل مصطفیٰ کا ہم شکل اس ذاکری کا میری قسمت میں یہ صلہ ہو مرنے سے پہلے یارا دیدار کربلا ہو یا رب حق زہرا توفیق یہ عطا ہو مرنے سے پہلے یارا دیدار کربلا ہو سرزمین جہاں پر گونجی اذان اکبر تسبیح آنسوں کی پڑھنی ہے اس زمین پر پڑھنی ہے اس زمین پر ایک سجدہ عقیدت اس خاک پر عطا ہو مرنے سے پہلے یارا دیدار یا رب حق زہرا توفیق یہ عطا ہو، مرنے سے پہلے یا رب دیدار کربلا ہو، مظلومیت پہ جس کی روتا ہے یہ زمانہ، اس بے خطا کے در پر ایک بار تو ہے جانا، ایک بار تو ہے جانا، جو قید ہے لہو پہ وہ اس طرح ادا ہو، مرنے سے پہلے یا رب دیدار کربلا ہو، یا رب حق زہرا توفیق یہ عطا ہو، مرنے سے پہلے یا رب دیدار کربلا ہو، یا رب نماز شب میں بس یہ دعا کروں میں، کچھ دیر اس زمین پر مجلس بپا کروں میں، مجلس بپا کروں میں، ہر ماتمی کے لب پر ہر دم یہی دعا ہو، مرنے سے پہلے یا رب دیدار کربلا ہو، یا رب حق زہرا توفیق یہ عطا ہو، مرنے سے پہلے یا رب دیدار کربلا ہو، دیدار کربلا ہو، صلوات علی محمد و آل محمد۔
السلام عليك يا رسول الله محمد المصطفى خاتم النبيين. السلام عليك يا ولي الله علي المرتضى أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى أم المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا صديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى كريم أهل البيت. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي هلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بكيت وبكي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحابه وأخيك يا أبو الفضل العباس وأختك زينب وأم كلثوم وبنتك سكينة ورقية جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين ومحمد بن علي علم النبيين وجعفر بن محمد الصادق وموسى بن جعفر القادم. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء ومعين الضعفاء والفقراء. السلطان أبا الحسن مولانا علي بن موسى الرضا كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدي في يوم الجزاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي التكي الجواد وعلي بن محمد النكي الهادي والحسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب الزمان سيدي الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن وشريك القرآن وكأمة الإيمان. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.